Hello there, everybody. This is John Farr with another Sun Biz Weekly webinar. And this one is one that's very dear to my heart because I've been involved with radio for many years. And the picture says radio, profit partner, or ripoff. And I don't want to come off super negative about all of that, but I have seen both sides of that continuum where radio has been a great profit partner, but I've also seen where mistakes were made and there were ripoffs, if you will. So we have an awful lot of information to cover today, and I hope that you're ready to take a lot of notes. Again, this is something I've done for a long time, and it's not radio is not something that you can learn overnight. And show you in a minute here what I've been doing with it. And I think you all know me pretty well. You've been on the webinars before, and you know the different companies that I lead, including Sun Biz Weekly. And if you look over there to the left, you'll see the Radio Mercury Award. I'm the only one in this industry that has been nominated for a Mercury Award. And what a Mercury Award is for creative production and spot copy, radio spot copy. And I have been nominated now 5 times. There are about 10 to 11,000 spots that are put up for nominations every year, and only a handful get nominated, and I've had that honor 5 times. So theoretically, I know something about radio. So we're going to get into this, and like I said, make sure that you take your notes, but this will be available on Sun Biz Weekly's website in a matter of about 2 hours, so you can come back and listen to it as much as you want. And my history, as I already mentioned, this is my 47th year of buying radio. I started in 1970 after getting my undergraduate degree in marketing. They threw me into the deep end of the pool in Omaha, Des Moines, and Kansas City, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But they had me working with major recording stars on their marketing campaigns, and which was crazy because I had never met a celebrity before, and so over the years, I had worked with a lot of celebrities on their campaigns, various campaigns, not just in the recording, working with the major record labels, but also with people that were trying to do marketing for their own non-recording industries, and I'll show you that in a minute. And of course, you probably recognize this guy, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, Mr. Charlie Daniels, just one of the people. Jay Leno worked with him. This is before he went into the Tonight Show, so that tells you how old that is. And then, of course, if for some of you speaking of old that remember Neil Diamond, he's still around. I think he does Vegas or whatever. And that was a bad hair day for me on the right. And of course, Howie Mandel worked with Howie on his marketing for his Deal or No Deal game that came out from his successful show. So anyway, radio has been something that's kind of been in my blood for 47 years, and I enjoy working with them. I know the mistakes they can make, and I know the good things they can do as well. And what you want to do in working with radio is you want to seek a partnership with them. The more that you seek a partnership and the more successful you are with that, the more successful you're going to be with radio marketing. And I think one of the things I want to emphasize is that radio has a lot of low-cost tools to them that they can offer to you to enhance your business. They can really do a lot of things. It's kind of an arbitrary basis too. It's not always the client that spends the most money with them, because they'll have agencies that represent McDonald's or Coca-Cola, or I'm talking about in bigger markets, that will come to them with a fistful of money and will spend money with them all year. Well, the radio will give them what they have to give them, but they don't necessarily give them anything else. And radio has a lot of goodies cost to them that they can share. But before we get our partnership going, we have to kind of understand them and what they want and what radio wants, which is very similar to us in the tanning industry. They're really very similar. They want consistent revenues and clients. Wouldn't we like that as well? We would like to have some consistency. Now, of course, we have a built-in seasonality to our business. Radio is somewhat has a seasonality to their business too. And what's kind of great for us in the tanning industry, since it sometimes seems like we don't have an awful lot of advantages sometimes, but we do have an advantage in that January, February, March, and into April, keep that in mind, the first quarter or even into the second quarter, the radio advertising year is not there. That's not the best time of their revenues. Their revenues come later in the spring and in the summer, and depending upon the format and the market, and then again in the fall for the gift giving season. But what's advantage to us is that January, February, March, and even into April, they have usually an excess of inventory. And so when negotiating prices, that's usually a good time to get better. Matter of fact, this is October, and right now I'm negotiating radio in many markets around the country for the January, February, March period. Now, to understand radio has two very important objectives, and never lose sight of this, because if you're dealing with radio and you're dealing with a salesperson, you may think that sales is the most important thing that they have going on at the station. Well, it certainly is a very important thing, but it's not the only important thing. What they worry about is audience numbers. Arbitron or Nielsen, these are ratings companies, and they rate audience sizes. Not every market is rated. A big, huge number of stations and markets are rated, but you'll get down to smaller markets, and sometimes there's not a ratings book that's on the audience size. And that rating is very important. So you've got two people that are in there in that station that have their own kind of selfish interest at heart. One is the sales department, and the other is the programming department. So they're worried about Arbitron numbers and their sales revenues, and sometimes those two people at a station are not always in sync, because the general sales manager or the GSM, he or she is worried about what they sell. Of course, that's important, and it's important audience numbers are good because it gives them something to talk about. But at the end of the day, they're worried about selling, and the program director is worried about the audience maintenance or audience enhancement. Now, why is that important? Well, when negotiating, and later on here I'll show you a motion that we negotiate. In negotiating, it's kind of good to get the program director involved, because if you can show them he or she that is good for their audience as well as good for your tanning salon, then that's the start of a real good partnership. And that's, of course, what you want. So I'll show you that as an example in just a minute here. Let's understand radio a little bit better. Let's also talk about some numbers. Advertising Bureau, RAB, has been around for ever since I've been, buying radio, I think. These are interesting numbers. You may find them interesting, and by their statistics, 85 to 90% of tan are female, and that's nothing that's unknown to all of you that are out there. If you're on a college campus, that may change a little bit. You might have a few more males than you would in a non-college campus location. But the individual age demographics here, I think, are kind of interesting. 18 to 24 is about 29% of the tanners, 25 to 34, 31%, and 35 to 54, 4%. Now, the tanners at the lower end will tan more often in some markets and in some seasons, but notice that 35 to 54 is also a big number, and they may not tan as often, but they have more income. So all three of those age demos are really important. And of course, I'm telling you this because the selection of your station that you use, the format of the music that they play, determines that age demographic. So typically you're going to be looking at a station that has heavy large female numbers. We don't mean large females, we mean has large numbers of females. And and you're going to be looking at it from your age perspective too, because one station usually does not cover a whole market unless that market is really, really small. Okay, so we sent out an email earlier on this saying, developing these partnerships. And I think the first thing that you have to remember is that you're not selling tanning, you're not selling pigmentation, you are selling self-esteem. And I wish all of us in this industry would remember that we do something that is extremely honorable and great. Our society is not exactly blessed with tremendous amounts of self-esteem. I got to tell you, the thing in Las Vegas was just horrible, and these things continue to go on, and it doesn't always make you feel great about your life. Well, how many times do you see somebody leaving a salon that does not feel better about themselves? We sell self-esteem, and that's something to really remember, because when you're constructing radio partnership and you're talking to a salesperson or a program director of that radio station, you've got something that's very valuable to sell. You're not selling cemetery plots. You're selling self-esteem. People leave feeling much better about themselves, and that's what we want, of course. So let's talk a little bit about ripoffs, because I kind of mentioned that in one of our emails, that can radio rip you off? And it's like anything else. If you don't watch what you're doing, it can happen. And it could be intentional or unintentional. It could be that you're dealing with an AE, an account executive in radio, that has little experience in radio, and even with their own station. I'll tell you, when I saw this really very dramatically, it was about years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Clear Channel Radio, which is now iHeartRadio, but Clear Channel went through an enormous their sales staff, and they cut off hundreds and hundreds of account executives across the country, paid some pretty big bucks. And my only comment on it is I believe that Clear Channel did that to get a lower payroll, which I don't think was the best thing to do, but they did it. But what they did is replaced a lot of veteran account executives with some very green new people to radio. And so sometimes the unintentional ripoff can just be that your account executive doesn't really know what he or she is doing, and it can happen. It of course, it strikes me all the time because I've been in it 47 years, so I know radio better than just about anybody in radio that's out there. It's because I'm so damn old that I've been doing it for so long. But again, intentional or unintentional, your account executive maybe has more pressure to account list than developing their accounts. And this is important because what happens is radio hires these young folks, usually out of college, not always, but hire them in their mid-20s. Maybe they have even been a client of the radio station, whatever. They'll hire them and they'll tell them to go out and develop their own client list. And so a lot of times they're spending more time trying to develop a client list than developing their clients. And it's sad because if they'd helped develop their client would be someone that would continue to buy from them and stay with them for years to come. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. And of course, they can try to sell you something that you don't need or you don't want. Now, again, it may be unintentional, but I'm going to show you an example of something that was sold to somebody that was something that my client didn't need and didn't want. A lot of times I get involved in these, unfortunately, after the fact. The tanning salon owner will call me and say, I think we're going the wrong direction here in our radio advertising and we need your help. And I'll look at some of the things that the account executives have sold them, and I just kind of shake my head. It's either from their immaturity as a radio person, or they did it intentionally because they may just be thinking about their total sales. And that's a shame because that really does not help the radio's reputation, particularly with tanning. And let's talk about other ripoffs too. It might be that they're running spots that you did not authorize. I have a situation with a client down south right now where they ran spots every month, and the best I can figure is about 4 to 5 months that they ran advertising the client did not authorize, and they still went after the client to pay for that. We negotiated a cheaper price, but now I'm going after that radio station because I think what they did was unethical. Or they may be running the same spot over and over without any copy change. If a radio station runs your spot and continues to run it, unless you specifically tell them to continue to run that same spot, that is really on their part, because people get bored easily and they don't want to listen to that same spot all the time. So that is something that is one of the loss. Or they give you an invoice with no on-air time of when your spot runs. Now that's absolutely verboten, and the radio commissions would not look favorably on stations that do that. Or there's sloppy or amateur production. When I listen to some of these spots, sometimes I just get sick because they're very poorly put together. And one of the things about production, by the way, it's not just the spot copy where I told you I'd been nominated for those Mercury Awards. It's not just the spot copy I write, but it's also the voice actors. You've got to get people in the station that are animated in the way that they put that spot together. A lot of times what they do is they do these spots and they'll have the account executive themselves put her voice or his voice on it, and it sounds like you're hearing somebody that is very young and does not really have that voice actor quality. Also, there's spots you paid for that are not running in your desired day part, and you have to look at your invoices. Those invoices should have the times on them and when they ran. But sometimes what happens is spots get bumped, and you get bumped to another day part. It shouldn't happen. If you're going to be bumped, they should tell you about it. Or if they bump you, they should give a make good and give you that spot where you deserve to have it. So let's say that you wanted to have your spots in the best day parts. The best day parts, I mean, you can make a note on this right now, are what we call midday, 10 to 3, and afternoon drive, or 3 to 7. Those are the best day parts. And some folks think that it's morning drive at 6 to 10 or 5 to 10 or 7 to 10. It's a good day part, but it's not the best. And there's reasoning for it. There's research that shows, particularly with the female consumer, on morning drive, they're not thinking about indulgence for that day. They start to think about indulgence or tanning or massage or workout in midday, or particularly when they're getting ready to go home, in the afternoon. So you got to look at where your spots are running. It's maybe not intended to rip you off, but it can happen if you're not watching what's going on. And then, of course, a lack of follow-through from your account executive. Set up a promotion, and this is going to be, let's say, a free tan week, and your account executive does not get back to you until a day or two before the spots are run, and you listen to the copy, and it's absolutely incorrect. It doesn't have the right locations. It doesn't have the right offer. So that can be a ripoff as well. And then you want to beware of a lack of communications detailing your agreements. If you're not getting an email back from your radio account executive, there's something wrong. They should be coming back to you to back up everything that you've talked about and everything that you've set up. And also, you want to ask, does your account executive you're dealing with, do they also represent your competition? Now, there's no question that is an unethical thing for a station to do. But when you get to a small enough station, and if there's 3 or 4 tanning salons and they don't have enough reps to go around, which shouldn't be the case, but and as a matter of fact, if it gets to that, then the general sales manager should probably represent your business as opposed to that same account executive. But that's what you want to ask. You want to ask your account executive, do they represent your competition as well? Because there's obviously a conflict of interest there. And then you want to do the math on special seasonal or thematic packages that they try to do. This is the one that really, really irritates the bedevil out of me. And I'm going to show you this right now. Okay, so beware of promotional packages that include overnight runs. What do you care if a spot runs at 2 o'clock in the morning? Doesn't do you any good. Or if they're talking about in their package the number of spots that run on Sundays. Sundays, forget it. There's no audience on Sundays. As a matter of fact, the audience for radio is best through early Saturday afternoon. But in a lot of late Saturday afternoons, in a lot of markets, particularly this time of the year, you've got football games going on. It just is, those are just not good times to be running your spots. So they give you this package, and this package says, we're going to give you so many spots. Now, I'm going to give you an example here, and I call it K-RIP for rip-off. I looked this up, and as far as I know, there is no K-RIP radio station, and if there is, and if you know somebody that works for a K-RIP, my apologies. This is not meant to go after your station. It's just to give you an example. So here is, and this was not the station, K-RIP was not the station, if there is a K-RIP, it was not the station that gave us this package. But this package came from a radio station, and they talked about they were going to give me 100 spots for the month at $25 per spot, or $2,500. Okay, so then you look at the details, and here's the details. It included runs of 4 Sundays of 2 spots each, or 8 spots where there's very little audience, 4 spots from 12A to 12A, meaning 12 o'clock midnight to 12 o'clock midnight. And that can include overnights or at 3 a.m. in the morning. At a spot run like that, 12A, you have no control of when that spot's going to run, and they could put you in at any time. Now, sometimes people buy those spots. They're called rotators, and you might buy those rotator spots, and you might get lucky, or the station account executive can reassure you that your spots are going to run on a great day part. I just wouldn't take the gamble on it. And again, this is part of this package that this account executive wanted to sell my tanning salon client. And then there's 20 spots on the station in streaming runs. Now, there are streaming advertising and streaming airplay on stations, but the most effective spots are terrestrial spots, and those are standard radio wave spots that you pick up in your car, on radio where you work or whatever. Streaming, it's not that streaming spots have no value to them, but I don't like them thrown into a package because they certainly don't have the value that a regular terrestrial spot has. What they're trying to do, and you look at this package, they're trying to fatten it up to make it look like you're really getting a great deal here. And then 2 spots in each major day part. Now, these were good because 7 to 10 is good, and 10 to 3 is good, and 3 to 7 is good. 2 spots, 7 to midnight is questionable. If you're on a college campus, it might be okay because you've got the young students that are out later or whatever. All right, so you look at all of this, and here's 100 spots for $2,500 or $25 a spot. Their normal spot rate is about $35 or $36 a spot. And as you're listening to this, you may be in a small market where you're paying less than that, and you may be in a market you're paying a lot more. I mean, when it comes to doing a webinar on this, it's difficult to give you something that everybody on this webinar would identify with, because I can tell you that in San Francisco, we spend more than $500 a spot, and in a small market in Iowa, we might be spending $12 a spot. So this is just an example, but this was from a particular market where those spots would normally run $35 to $36, and that was for a 30-second spot, and I think it was 20% more for 60. So you look at this, here's 100 spots, $25 a spot. Gee, that sounds like that's a good price since it's $10 cheaper. But when you deduct the Sundays and the 12 to 12 rotator, and you take off the streaming spots, and you get down to what is real, there's only 24 spots of real value. And the real cost is over $100 a spot. And so it's, this happens, and it's very irritating when it happens and it's offered to me. I get really upset because I'll have to remind them, in 47 years, you'll think I haven't learned something. We're not going to do this. and usually gets crazy. Okay, so aside from these ripoffs, and we want to have a partnership with radio because there's a lot of good things they can do. But before you go shopping for radio, here's some things that you need to know. Wait a second here. I'm trying to get this out of the way. You want to know what it is that you want from them. Okay, get this clicker here. Okay, now what you're looking at or looking for is a good CUME audience. CUME is just a term in the industry short for cumulative audience numbers, and I won't go into the technical description because there's average quarter hour, there's CUME, there's time spent listening. I won't go into that. The simplest thing for you to do is to ask for their CUME audience numbers, and specifically in a day part. You can say, what are your CUME audience numbers in morning drive or midday 10 to 3 or PM drive 3 to 7. And what I'm saying here is you don't necessarily have to buy the #1 station in CUME, because that's one of these station account executives that say, well, we're #1 in 18 to 24, which is typically what we call a CHR or contemporary hit radio station. We're #1. Well, and that's great. It would be great to be on the #1 station because you'd have the largest audience, let's say, in that 18 to 20. But it may be that they're so expensive that you may want to take a look at who's #2, because for the dollars, if you look at the dollars and the audience, you may do better with the second-rated station in the market, because sometimes that first-rated station, they as my wife would say, they like to drink their own bathwater, and they think they're pretty hot stuff, so their rates kind of get ridiculous and they don't want to negotiate them. So, but most of the time when I negotiate radio for tanning clients, we do end up with the #1 station in a demographic or day part or age, whatever. Not all the time, and you don't necessarily have to. You can still do well if you get a decent audience, and especially at a much cheaper price. Okay. Clicker doesn't want to work here. Okay. All right. So the importance of CUME is matched by the importance of frequency. The key to radio is reach and frequency. When I talk about CUME, I'm talking about reach. How big of an audience do you reach? And of course, the other side of it is frequency. Meaning, let's say that you go with the #1 station and your reach is a huge audience that they have, but you're running 8 spots a week. You're wasting your money, because 8 spots a week won't do it. You have to have more frequency than that. But let's say that you buy a whole garbage load of spots on a station that has no audience. Well, then you're defeating your purpose as well. So it is a combination of the CUME or reach and of frequency. And these, again, this is just stuff that you're going to learn as you start to get into it, along with age and gender demographics, what you're trying to reach. And typically, we're trying to reach a female, as I showed you before, the Radio Advertising Bureau research. We're trying to reach a female, and there's 3 very key age demographics. 18 to 24, you tend to have more single females in 18 to 24 than married. 25 to 34, now you got more married than single, and typically they're more settled down. You might start to get soccer moms in there, and then you get 35 to 54. Excuse me, 35 to 54, and now you're getting to a lady that's got more discretionary income. So all of those demographics are good demographics to reach. Some have the budget to buy enough stations to reach them all. It just depends on the market and the time of the year. And like I said, this is a really good time of the year right now to be negotiating January, February, March. I say it's a good time for a veteran as myself that's done this for a long time. It may not be for you, because right now radio is selling everything they can get their hands on, between Halloween and the gift season of November and December. So, okay, also, the question is, when are you trying to reach them? And I can recommend that with your limited dollars, I would go with midday and I'd go with afternoon drive. Morning drive, they do have a heck of an audience, but think of morning though. On morning drive, if someone is driving to work and it takes them 15, 20 minutes to get there, they'll hear some music, they'll hear some talk, and they'll hear a lot of advertising. Now they get to work and between 10 and 3, and they could be listening to radio all day on their radio at their desk, and they might be listening to it stream through their computer, but they have more time, so the times, what we call TSL, goes up dramatically because they're not driving a car. And then you get to the 4 o'clock hour before they leave, they're still listening to radio, but they're deciding what they're going to do after. So I like the midday and I like the afternoon drive more than I do AM drive. And so for tanning, the best months and weeks to be on the air, obviously what we should do as an industry is you're looking at the 3rd or 4th week of January. I remember back 27 years ago when I got into the tanning biz, it seemed like we were best to be right out there that first week of January with the old theme of best me I can be and new year, new me, that kind of thing. But as I think we all know, the tanning business doesn't seem to really start with us until late January and certainly first week of February. So getting radio out there last week of January, first week of February, say, and I love to do a free tan week because we're thinking about market share, but January, February, March, April, and even into May, depending upon where your budget will take you. If your budget will only allow 3 weeks, I would save your money because you're not getting enough branding into the what we call top of mind awareness into the consumer's head. So now if you can't afford a lot, but you can afford at least February, March, that makes a lot of sense. So then the question is, how do I take advantage of free spots that the station has? Well, let's talk about your business first. As a tanning operator, you have free goodies that you can give away. You have free and obviously you don't like to give away free tans, but the variable cost of a free tan for you is almost nothing. Very, very cheap. And I believe all the research I've seen that the average tan, when you factor in the cost, amortize the cost of bulb usage, electricity, the payroll to clean the bed, whatever. I mean, you're talking somewhere between 80 and 90 cents a tan. So if you offer the radio station some free tans to go with promotions that they're doing, well, the radio station has the same situation. They have a lot of free airtime that they can offer too. So, so how do I take advantage of free spots they may have? I'll show you a great example in just a minute here. Okay, partnerships. Talking about that before. Constructing your annual radio spend as a % of your salon company's gross sales. And that's really the best way to start is look at what am I spending? Well, you should know what you're spending in payroll. The payroll numbers can be all over the board. I've seen payroll as high as 40%, which is crazy. I've seen it as low as 21%. But sometimes when I'm looking at payroll numbers, it's hard to really determine what's real because you may have the owner working and not collecting a paycheck, or if they do collect a paycheck, they're not counting that in as payroll. So when I work with a client and they tell me their payroll numbers, I have to clarify that so I can compare that to the rest of the numbers we have from around the country. So radio budgets are a wider range of commitment depending upon the competition. If you have a lot of competition, the % of your gross that you're going to have to spend for advertising in general, including radio, is going to be larger. Also market size. If you have 4 salons in Waterloo, Iowa, the budget that you'll have to spend is considerably different and considerably smaller on a proportionate basis than if you have 4 salons in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Because Milwaukee is the 28th largest market, and I don't know what Waterloo is. It's probably 128 or something. I don't know. But anyway, the market size does make a big difference. And also, of course, the time periods that you want to dominate. If you want to dominate midday and afternoon drive like I'm suggesting, what you may want to do is buy what they call rotator spots that start at 7 in the morning and go to 7 at night because on a rotator, you can get cheaper rates usually than you can just buying those specific day parts. And that's another conversation. And some of these things I'm going to mention to you today, and I hope I'm not driving you crazy, but after 47 years, it's hard to put it all into an hour or an hour and a half. Okay, so partnerships. You want to meet with the station's AE, account executive, over lunch. Not a bad idea for you to buy lunch. This sounds like a crazy thing because you say, well, I'm spending, they should be buying lunch for me. What's more important, is a partnership with radio or the fact that they pay for your sandwich at Panera? So you want that AE to see you as somebody that's not trying to necessarily take advantage of them, but trying to put together a partnership. It starts with a relationship. Okay, offer the AE free tanning so they have a feel for your business. In other words, you're talking to this account executive and you're asking them if they're a tanner. If they're a tanner, ask them, if they don't already tan with you, ask them to come in and tan at your place at no charge, because you'd like their opinion on your tan beds and the service there. Well, everybody loves to have their opinion asked. I'm no different than any of you on this call. If you ask me my opinion, I'll give you my opinion, just because I think my opinion is usually right. Aren't we all the same way? So get this account executive to come in and tan. They may end up being an ambassador for you for your business. Also, discuss all the ways your salon can help with their promotional efforts. Free tan certificates cost you very little. Radio stations are doing promotions all the time, constantly doing promotions. And they're doing what's called package or thematic promotions for the station. And a lot of times they're looking for goodies to put in there, whether it's free sandwiches from Arby's or it's free pizzas or whatever. And it's not a bad idea for you to be the one that's giving them free tan certificates, because, and then of course what you can do on your free tan certificate is you can say only good for one-time use for each consumer, and then that keeps them from collecting. Let's say this consumer knows somebody that's working at the radio station, and they say, well, give me 10 of your free tans, and then they don't end up paying for tanning because they're using all those. But if you put in there only one-time usage per tanning consumer, get away from that baloney that can sometimes happen. But having those free tan certificates in a number of the radio station's promotions, it's a good way for you to get mentions on air, and it's a good way to develop that partnership with them. Okay, so let your new radio partner know you're committed to more than just one buy. Think of, if you're thinking of buying 3 weeks of radio, as I said, save your money. Radio is an excellent cumulative branding vehicle. Radio is very good at branding. But not 3 weeks. So let's say that you put together your budget and you said, okay, I can spend X amount of dollars for the year. Now, radio likes to think of the term annual. They like to think of people being on 12 months, 52 weeks a year. Well, we're just not going to do that in tanning, and we all know that. So you have to explain to the account executive, and again, there's some younger people in radio now, and they don't always understand these things, so you're going to have to educate them. And the idea is that we don't run advertising or promotion. We don't spend ad dollars 12 months of the year. What we're going to do is we're going to spend, our definition of annual is going to be maybe February and maybe even only February through April. But keep in mind, April is statistically, at least with our clients in the aggregate numbers we have, April is one of the best months of the year for selling EFTs. And so having radio run in April and May, and then May ends up being one of our best months as well. And then of course, June, it starts to drop off. All right, so you put together your budget. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars. And you go to your account executive and you say, look, here's what I'm going to commit for the year. And so the account executive then knows how much they can count on, because they get commission on that. So, and that's good. You want them to think that you're in this to give them something. Maybe it's a few free tan certificates for some of the promotions the station is doing, but you're also telling them you're going to make this kind of money because here's what I'm going to spend. My annual commitment for say February through April or May, and maybe I spend a few dollars in October for Halloween sprays, and then maybe in November for a Black Friday week or Pink Wednesday. We have all different kinds of varieties of things that we've done there. But what I want from you, account executive, is I'd like you to go back to this and get us a meeting with the program director about a major promotion in February that will give a year of free tanning away to one listener. Now, so you say, well, why would you want to do that? Because you want the radio station to promote the devil out of it. And these are going to be free spots that you're not going to have to pay for. You're giving away 1 year of free tanning to one consumer. And really, what does it cost you when you look at it that way? But the other thing is, and that's huge, is that everybody that enters to win for that year of free tanning gets a week of free tanning. 1 week, and then you put an expiration on there too, by the way, so you don't have to worry about them coming back 2 years from now wanting to use their week of free tanning. Although if they did come back, I mean, it's always nice that they come back. So I mean, it's good that they're coming back into the salon, but you put a limit on it. I'm going to show you a client here. This happens to be in New York. I've done this promotion probably 200 times or more over the years, and it always works. And this is Pacific Tan, and so we negotiated with the station to do the year of free tanning. And here's what it looked like on the radio station's website. This is a page, and it says, click here to win a year of free tanning, and it showed Pacific Tanning, and it showed the radio station's logo on there as well, and it said each person who enters will instantly win a week of free tanning, and it works great. You would love to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people enter this contest and be walking around your market with a certificate or an image on their phone for this free tanning. You would want that, because that's a great goal, is to get as many people out there walking around talking about your free tanning. And here's an entry form. They went to the entry form and they put in their name and all that information in there. And by the way, some radio stations will allow you to collect the entries, so you end up with more emails that you can add to your database. Or at least the radio station may give you the people that entered. They may share that with you. And then after they've registered, then you get a responder. A responder goes back to them. Thank you for registering. You just entered to have a chance to win a free year of tanning. Each person register will instantly win. Print or show this voucher. So it's great. I mean, you can print this off, or you can bring in your cell phone, your smartphone, and you can show that to the people at your desk in your tanning salon, and they can get their week of free tanning. And it works. It works very, very well. And I think the most important thing that the point I want to get across today is that I think a lot of people think of radio as an old media, especially when they're thinking about today's, social media and whatever. And you're right, it is an old media. It is a very old media, but it is a very effective media. It's one that, for a number of reasons, which I'll show you in a minute here, is been around long before any of us were probably born, and it'll be around here long after we're all gone. Radio is just something I believe in heavily, and what they've done is radio now has changed who they are. They now have an awful lot of other things to offer you. If you get the right partnership with them, you've got in the upper left-hand corner, you see traditional radio, or what we call terrestrial radio spots, but they also have web marketing. They do a lot of that, stream their signals, as you see over there on the computer. They have eBlast. They have big eBlast databases that they can go out to. And then, of course, what's really exciting is that most radio stations now have a video playback. So if you put together, let's say you put together a 15-second video, kind of a before and after of what a person looks like before they got a custom airbrush or they got a booth spray for you, and then what they look like afterward, and they're all smiling and they've got this great color. And of course you ham it up a little bit, but it might be a 15 or 20 So, and the station, if you have the right partnership with them, they can put that on there because, as you know, the success of YouTube shows that everybody is looking at video. Unfortunately, some of the videos, particularly with some of the recent events, we don't really want to see, but that's the nature of society. Okay, so let's ask the question, why does radio work? Well, radio is the mobile media. It goes everywhere with people, and I'm not a representative of radio. Believe me, when I work with you or I work with a client with their radio, I don't make anything from the radio station. I'm not an agency. I don't get a percent kickback from whatever you buy. When I work with a client, the client pays my fee that we've negotiated, and then from that point on, what I'm trying to do is get you all the free goodies you can get from that radio station. So, so when I'm telling you this stuff, I'm telling you why I believe in it as a great advertising vehicle. It is the mobile media. It goes everywhere. It is the first media you turn on when you get in your car, obviously. It's the last one you're listening to before you turn your car off. It has an enormous installed base. I was talking before when I mentioned their email base and their Twitter and their Facebook and whatever. Radio stations are huge with that, and they have this enormous installed. And so if you partner with them, you get to take advantage of what they've got. Because I can assure you that most radio stations and most markets have an email database much larger than your email database. So it's good to partner with them on that. Radio, of course, is incredibly flexible. You can stop and start ads, usually without any real difficulty. You can change copy. You can't do that with television. You can certainly do that with social media, but as far as with radio goes, it's total flexibility. It doesn't cost you anything for production. It's now I use for my clients. I have a professional production house that we do the radio ads. I don't charge my clients to do that because I have a price with this production house that doesn't cost me all that much to get it done. And I use a production house because they have voice actors and by the way, you're going to hear some of the spots here in just a minute. And also, radio works. It's the lowest cost per consumer contact. I mean, you can't get. I mean, well, let me say, social media is a lower cost, but you're not going to have the reach on social media that a radio station that's a leader in your market is going to have. And of course, you can target the reach. You can go to age. You can certainly go to gender, which is mostly female anyway, but you can go to age, you can go to the time of day that you want, and that's what I love about it. And of course, I mentioned before, no production cost or very low production cost, depending upon what you're trying to do. And multimedia features now with radio, and this, by the way, is an old figure. I meant to correct this, 54 million web visits per month, and it's more like 75 million now in radio. It's huge. Okay. Now, when does radio not work? Okay, it's when it's used inconsistently. I'll have a client come to me, they'll get on the first week of February, and then they want to have the third week of March, and then the second week of April. It doesn't work. You have to be consistent on radio because that consumer gets out in their car, hits the button that they listen to, and that's what they hear. And if they don't hear your spot, but they hear your competition, that's not good. Also, you use wrong formats. I'll have a client that'll come to me and say, "Well, I got a really good price on this sports radio." Well, sports radio skews very heavily toward males, and it's not a radio station that you want to use. Or I've even had somebody suggest talk radio. I can't imagine that there are a lot of Rush Limbaugh listeners out there that are also tanners because most of them are males and they tend to be older. So I'm not, by the way, that was not a shot at Rush Limbaugh. It's just using the wrong format is not a good idea. Or they're using the incorrect day parts. That's not good. If you're buying 7 to midnight because you think it's a cheap price, it may be cheap, but you may not be hitting your who you want to hit. And of course, ineffective content and production, and of course, weak spot frequency. keep in mind that when you're doing your radio, like any other advertising, differentiation is the key. It is the key to ad success. And as Harvard Business Review has said, in every measure on equity meaning the return on investment for a company, return on capital, and average annual revenue growth rate, differentiation wins over price gouging every time. If what you do as a tanning salon business is just cheap price, you will, as they say, you'll live by the sword and you will die by the sword. Any business that their whole market plan is cheap price is doomed to be out of business, and that definitely is going to happen. Okay, so the radio ads that work, what we see that works, generally speaking, is humor. If you look at what goes on with ads today, and you look at Progressive or look at Geico. I mean, Geico has great ads, whatever, but humorous ads work very, very well. I'm going to play some for you. First of all, I'm going to play, and by the way, what we try to do with ads, a lot of times it might deal with female challenges because, again, we're looking at a female audience. So this first one is a lady that is typing on her computer to her diary. Thing will play. Okay, guys, just give us a minute. Mr. High Tech is going to figure this out, and I'm going to play these 4 ads for.
Once again, it's that time of year when we're haunted by monstrous monsters, ghastly ghouls, and the scariest of all supernatural creatures, used car salesmen.
Hey, can we make a deal today?
But the most horrific of all Halloween scaries is your pasty white complexion. Maybe not quite that scary. That's better. But you can avoid the look of Walking Dead this Halloween by getting into Del Sol Tanning for a luxurious instant spray tan. Del Sol Tanning at 1710 Paul Bunyan Drive will help you to look like the confident and sexy woman you want to be. A Del Sol tan will go well with that Catwoman costume of yours. No one may appreciate your spray tan while you're wearing that Catwoman costume, but they'll certainly admire it when you take it off.
Del Sol Tanning and Halloween are a natural combination for you to get rid of the swan look and be the best Catwoman you can be. Well, maybe not that big of a cat.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, am I truly the fairest of them all? Speak to me, mirror.
Well, you could use some color. I would suggest getting into some tanning sessions soon if you want to look good and feel great and get rid of that pastiness.
Oh, really? So I don't look good now? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, tanning could help you a lot, and you might want to consider losing a few pounds. What's with the hammer, Your Highness?
Okay, mirror, mirror on the floor. Now, who is it that you adore?
Want to be adored and look great this new year? Get into Pacific Tan and start the year out right. Pacific Tan will guide you to looking tanned and healthier with their tanning care professionals who know how to help you be as dark as you want. Pacific Tan has wonderful equipment, designer skin lotions to keep your tan beautiful all year, and no smart aleck talking mirrors. Pacific Tan, Odessa's only real tanning expert.
Mirror, mirror down there. Any other thoughts you'd like to share?
Have you, considered anger management?
Those of us in high society prefer our exclusive tanning membership at any of the 6 Ultimate tanning salons in Peoria, Springfield, Blimpington, and of course Champaign, an appropriate name for such excellence.
Ma'am, it's Bloomington, not Blimpington.
Whatever. Our Ultimate Tan exclusive membership gets us many benefits of fabulous luxury tanning at discounts and access to all of their professional and of course sterile clean tanning beds.
Ma'am, the Ultimate Tan salons have exclusive benefits for all of its, exclusive members.
But my membership says many is exclusive.
Yes, it is, and Ultimate Tan has more than 8,000 exclusive members.
8,000. A bunch of wannabes.
And you'll wanna be another member for the exclusive benefits that the Ultimate Tan will give you for your tanning experience. Ultimate Tan in Peoria, Champaign, Springfield, and of course, Bloomington.
Dear Diary, So much coming up. Weddings, a graduation, and of course my high school class reunion. I wonder if Glenn is still looking good. Oh, he was such a hunk. Why he ever dropped me for Kelly, I'll never understand. Glenn was a hunk, but not too bright if I remember correctly. To get ready for Glenn and Kelly, I'm starting my Celebrity Tan campaign today. Celebrity Tan always gets me looking like a golden goddess. Okay, maybe not a goddess, but I'll sure look better than that cow Kelly. And when I get through with my Celebrity Tan strategy, Glenn will be reunion drooling. And as for Kelly, well, she can go back to being the cheap, easy, sleazy, overweight cow that she is. Must make 2 appointments today. One for Celebrity Tan across from Hardee's on Main Street, and an appointment for counselor to forget and forgive Kelly for trampy actions 20 years ago. Oh, that's going to be tough to do since she's still my sister.
Celebrity Tan in Rice Lake. Look your very best, but do it for you.
And I'm unmuted now, so.
Beautiful.
Okay, David, thank you for the technical support there. People, as you're listening to those ads, we tend to go up to the, we push the envelope a little bit. And what I see as a mistake that a lot of tanning salon operators make is they're so concerned about offending somebody in a radio ad that they don't like something that sounds a little sexy or a little suggestive or whatever. We certainly don't do any ads that are distasteful, but we do like to make them we like to make them funny. We like to make them something that people are going to talk about and remember and converse. And we've been very successful, and I think that's probably why we've gotten as many nominations as we have. Okay, so let's move on here. We're almost done. It gives you an example, by the way, of what we do with in constructing radio ads. And of course, you want to negotiate radio like a pro. And again, this is kind of where you have to do your homework. You want to look for good female stations that are CHR, or contemporary hit radio. That's your 18 to 24, or in my generation was what we call a top 40 station. A hot AC, which is a hot adult contemporary station, and that is where you're starting to get into your 24 to 4 range, because they play music usually from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever. So you'll get Journey, Speedwagon, and Bruce Springsteen, up to even Lady Gaga. Contemporary country. Country is an enormous format for our business. It's just amazing to me how many of the employees in salon tanning salons are country listeners, and then how many of the customers are too. So you want to contact that station's account executive and get this meeting set up and buy them lunch. And then you want to also deal with stations that handle women's issues: bridal fairs, cancer drives, women's shelters, big brothers, big sisters. Again, remember that when they put together their promotions, if they have to give out some free goodies, you can be there with a few free tan certificates. And lastly, when you're looking at that station, as I mentioned before, you want to look at their audience numbers, their CUM numbers. Here is an example of what's called TAP scan of Arbitron, and this is one that goes back a few years, but it shows you the number of persons. If you look in the column, the last column on each section there, you'll see CUM persons, and that gives you an idea of the audience size that these various radio stations have. And so I think I've probably given you more than enough than you can probably make notes to, and so I would like to open it up for questions if you have any right now. And let's see if I have some questions. And let's go and look here. The session's being recorded. Okay, great. How do I get? Oh, let me get to the question pane. Okay. All right. So D is asking about Pandora. Yes, Pandora has grown significantly over the years, as also iHeartRadio has, where you can develop your own, if you will, radio station. You know, for the money, D, I would, with regular radio, Pandora has grown a lot. Pandora is still like very, very small compared to regular radio stations, reach. Another question, Vern is asking me about what are my rates to negotiate and work with radio. Vern, it would depend on the market so much, because if you're talking about Los Angeles, it's Los Angeles is probably 150, 160 radio stations. It's very, very segmented. It's not an easy market to negotiate. I've done it many times. When you get down to Waterloo, Iowa, it's a different situation. But it would depend on the market. It would depend on what your budget, depending on what you're wanting to do. I can't give you an answer. If you want to contact me, which please, if you would, you can contact me via my website for a free consultation, and I'll tell you what I think we can do. And let's see if we have another. Here's a question from Gail. She wants to know, have you ever had any complaints about the spots, production, or copy being a little bit racy or whatever? And what you'll find out is that everyone's opinion, and this is true for retail as well as in advertising, the concept of everyone is somewhere around 3 people. We ran an ad down in Mississippi in what would be considered the Bible Belt, and the spot was incredibly successful, but it had what sounded like the voice of Satan in the background, and the message of it was that all tanning salons should be in the business. And then we were talking up our client and how good they were, and we got 3 complaint calls, and when we researched it, it was all the same person calling from the Mississippi Bethel College, and it was just an elderly lady that was offended, that thought we were glorifying Satan, and that's absolutely what we're doing. So you can't worry about every single individual person and how they feel about it. So we're running here, and what I'm going to do is suggest again, if you want more information, if you want to hear this broadcast again, then go to Sun Biz Weekly. It should be on there probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours probably at the latest, and you can listen to this webinar again. And if you want help with your radio, and of all the things that I do in the tanning industry, the 3 that are the most important, the 3 that I think I have more expertise, with all due respects to modesty, than anybody else is, first of all, is EFT pricing and pricing strategies. I do that so much, it's crazy. Human resource management, which is my background, that's what my MBA is in, is human resource management, and radio. Those are 3 of my greatest strengths, and that I've done so much. And if you want help in those, or anything in running your salon, then go to my website. It's johnrfarr.com, johnrfarr.com. Go to that, and if you need information on a consistent basis by subscription, we have the Vault, and we have, I can't even remember how many Vault members we have now. Very happy to have all the Vault members we have. And every month we put out new tools for what's called the HR Toolkit. And again, if you want to see this webinar again, go to sunbizweekly.com. I want to thank you for being on today, and I wanted to try to keep this not going and a half. So thank you for being a good listener, and we will be announcing another webinar very soon. Thank you, and have a very good day.